Hey guys, Marcus Melnick here with Firearm Mentor. Hope you're enjoying my YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. These little things are free to you and really help the channel. I appreciate your support. Enjoy. Thank you.
The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters. Greetings and welcome back to the Personal Safety Show. This is Marcus Melnick from Firearm Mentor and Stress to Logic, your host. And what I do every once in a while, or when I get new information, is update or alter my curriculum. There are new laws that come out all the time. And in addition to new legislative laws, there's also new case law. And a lot of instructors do not follow the case law. I just teach what's in the law. Well, case law is certainly a big part of it. So something happened in my last class, after my last class, which I want to share with my listeners to keep you safe. And I've added this little tidbit to my curriculum as part of a safety rule. One of my customers did a CCL renewal, and he used a hammer-fired traditional double/single action firearm, and he qualified at 100%. This is like his third time doing a concealed carry class. Very intelligent. The guy's a doctor, and he got home and went to go put his firearm away and discovered that it was still cocked and loaded, meaning one in the chamber. So it's very important for the listeners, for anyone who's actually goes to the shooting range or is a shooter, to police their own firearm, meaning double, triple, quadruple check that it is not loaded when you put it back in your bag. One of the habits that I have is when I go to the range or teach a class, I will take my firearm out of the safe, check it just to make sure it's not loaded, pack it, and then when I get to the range or class, depending on what I'm doing, when I take it out, I check it again. Every time I pick up a firearm. So I could be demonstrating grip, and then I could be talking about something else with trigger control. Each time I pick up the firearm, I ensure it is not loaded. Do I know that it wasn't loaded in the safe? I didn't put it away in the safe, loaded. I didn't take it out, loaded. I didn't put it in my bag, loaded. But it is a great habit to get in your head, because we don't want anything to happen. God forbid, what if this guy hit a bump on the way home and something in the bag got lodged in the trigger? Wow, that could have been a really disastrous outcome. So please, double, triple, quadruple, and even more, check your firearms when you are done shooting. Similarly, in the fire service, the time that is highest probability for an injury of a firefighter is after a fire, during what's called salvage and overhaul. Salvage and overhaul means that if they have like a smoldering couch, they'll take it outside so it doesn't reignite. They'll also put things away, they put their hoses away, that type of thing. And that's when everyone's guard is let down. And that's when the most injuries happen. I see a parallel, I see a similarity in shooting sports. So please, you have to always be aware. Now, I'm going to bring you some other news that has happened recently. The first thing, and this was this week, Chicago Customs officers seized more than 1,500 Glock switches to turn guns fully automatic last year. According to CBS, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection announced Tuesday that its officers seized more than 1,500 devices to turn weapons fully automatic throughout last year. That's what everyone hears. It's the Glock switch. The agency said officers seized 473 shipments containing 1,507 weapon-modifying devices from January 1st through December 31st, 2024. The agency said it had stopped 155 shipments containing 354 Glock switches, which modify semi-automatic weapons to make them fully automatic, between January and June. In July, August, and September alone, Customs and Border Patrol officers seized 241 shipments containing a total of 948 switches. Customs officials did not provide specific seizure figures for subsequent months. Most of the Glock switch shipments come from China and were destined for various locations throughout the U.S., according to a U.S. official. The agency did share images of Glock switches that its officers seized in Chicago. These seizures clearly illustrate how closely CPB, that's Customs and Border Protection, examines import manifests and identifies items that could potentially harm our nation's citizens. LaFonda D. Sutton-Burke, Director of Field Operations for the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Chicago Field Office, said in a news release. She goes on to say, using their targeting experience, they're able to consistently spot new shipping trends and keep these dangerous devices out of the hands of criminals. There are reasons why these items are illegal. The agency said automatic fire conversion switches for handguns are not legal to use or possess. They allow users to pull and hold the trigger to fire as many rounds as possible. The devices can be ordered online or made by 3D printers, officials said. The Bureau of ATF restricts their importation. Late last year, multiple states sued Georgia-based Glock Incorporated for allegedly turning a blind eye to how easily switches can turn handguns into fully automatic weapons. So, really, don't order these from China, Temu, or AliExpress. You're going to get in big trouble, and this is big trouble. It's federal charges, they're felonies. So if I were you, I would seriously consider not doing that. Now, you want to experience that, you can always go to a gun store that has one. They're properly licensed. You can rent it, go on the range and shoot it. Personally, I would not want to shoot a fully automatic handgun. And when I say that, I mean not one with a brace, not one with a stock, because it is just too dangerous. With most people, they really don't have the muscle memory, because these things are not legal for the regular person to possess. They don't have the muscle memory and how to control the muzzle rise. So I highly recommend not doing it unless it's what I call a hot air balloon ride, where you do it once in your lifetime and that's it. So please, please, please be cautious, be careful. Another recent article, our Republicans are taking aim at easing imports of sporting guns and ammo. Senator James Rich, who's a Republican from Idaho, introduced legislation designed to weaken the ability of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, BATFE, or as we shorten it to ATF, to block imports of firearms and ammunition designed for sporting purposes, in quotes. Dubbed the Sporting Firearms Access Act, which was first shared with the Washington Examiner, the bill would amend the Gun Control Act of 1968 to define, quote, sporting purposes, end quote, for authorized imports to include hunting, target shooting, and competitions. This would prevent the ATF from arbitrarily restricting firearms. Risch, chairman of the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee, criticized current regulations as a, quote, chokehold on law-abiding gun owners' Second Amendment rights, end quote. Barring the import of firearms for legal sporting activities is bureaucratic red tape at its finest, Risch said. My Sporting Firearms Access Act sets the ATF's definition of sporting purposes straight to ensure Idaho's hunters, skeet shooters, and sportsmen are not denied the import of firearms or ammunition to enjoy their pastimes. The Gun Control Act of 1968 generally only allows imports of certain firearms for sporting purposes and was enacted after the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose birthday is tomorrow. So happy MLK Jr. Day. Hopefully we can remember his legacy. Gun advocacy groups such as the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation and the National Shooting Sports Foundation, endorsed the proposal, saying it would offer clarity to the law that governs millions of imported firearms every year. Many of the preferred firearms used by sportsmen and women across the country are imported from other countries for use in hunting and recreational shooting, and this legislation provides needed clarifications that firearms for these activities are lawful importations, said Jeff Crane, President and CEO of the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation. Democrats have long opposed such a change and advocated that President Joe Biden direct the ATF to further restrict imports under the agency's, quote, sporting purposes authority. Dozens of Democrats cited a 2023 letter to Biden that the ATF had not reviewed the eligible shotguns for over a decade and eligible rifles in over 20 years. They said technological advances warranted more restrictions. The White House should direct the ATF to review the list of firearms, firearm parts, and related accessories being imported under the sporting purposes exception to determine whether those products are still used for legitimate sporting purposes by law-abiding citizens and thus still satisfy the standard for that exception, the Democrats wrote. If they do not, the ATF should ban their import. Original co-sponsors of the bill include a dozen Republicans, including Senators Cynthia Lewis, Republican from Wyoming, Bill Cassidy, Republican from Louisiana, Rick Scott, Republican from Florida, John Cornyn, Republican from Texas, Steve Daines, Republican from Montana, Roger Wicker, who is also a Republican from Mississippi, Roger Marshall, same party, Kansas, Tim Sheehy from Montana, also Republican, Tom Tillis, North Carolina, Mike Crapo, C-R-A-P-O, boy, did he get teased. He's a Republican from Idaho, Pete Ricketts, who's also a Republican from Nebraska, and Ted Budd, B-U-D-D, not Butt, Ted Budd, who is from North Carolina.
I want my listeners to know that this is my dream, teaching people about safety. If it weren't for you, if it weren't for my listeners, I couldn't live my dream. So on behalf of my family and myself, I want to thank each and every one of you for allowing me to live my dream. And I also want to continue to live my dream, and I'm excited to continue to spread the word of safety. Recently, I began a new service as a conference keynote speaker. So if anyone would like for me to speak at future events, or if anyone knows of an introduction or would like to discuss how we can work with one another, I'd love to do just that. The keynote speaking website is www.stress2logic.com. That is STRESS, 2LOGIC.com. If you're aware of any conference speaking engagements where you'd like to have me speak, I'd love an introduction. You can always share my electronic business card, which is Marcus Melnick, MarcusMelnick.com. Now, back to the show.
Oftentimes I get asked, hey, when's your next concealed carry class? Or I need a renewal. Look, guys, you can go to firearmmentor.com/classes to see all, I don't mind answering questions, but the website again is firearmmentor.com/classes. That's FIREARMMENTOR.com/CLASSES. And that's where I list all of my classes. There is a link where you can click the link and register and pay with a credit card or PayPal or whatever you want to pay with. We accept multiple forms of payment. And if you're in the military, send us an email first. My electronic business card is marcusmelnick.com. That is MarcusMelnick.com. Because for initial classes, we actually heavily discount if you've served in the military. We appreciate those who have served in the United States military. Well, I also have people from other countries. I've had people from the Polish military, the Turkish military, Israeli military in classes. There's no credit for that in the United States. I apologize, but I do deeply, deeply discount. And I will give you the coupon code once you send me your DD214 with anything but a dishonorable discharge. Because if somebody has a dishonorable discharge, they cannot own a firearm. So pretty much any type of legal discharge that's not dishonorable, I will honor. Why am I bringing this up? Well, I had a customer refer another customer. He signed up for the class and he paid full price. Oops. So what I do is I emailed him and I was like, hey, look, if you can send me your DD214, I'll refund you the difference. And I haven't heard back. This was late yesterday, so you got to give it some time. But I do heavily discount for members of the veterans of the United States military. I greatly, greatly appreciate your service to the country. In other news, I actually have been going over this article that talks about the best concealed carry firearms in the United States in 2025. And I'm going to go through that list and give you my opinion. Staccato CS. I love the Staccatos. Wow, they are phenomenal guns. These are the guns that John Wick used, the handguns that John Wick used. They are phenomenal. I would not recommend them for a concealed carry. Why? There's nothing wrong with the firearm. However, if you are involved in a self-defense incident, that firearm becomes evidence and it is taken away from you. And when it's taken away from you for a year or two while this is investigated, they don't take good care of it. It sits in a damp room. It could get rusty. And you don't want to have a multi-$1,000 gun confiscated. I would much rather have a $500 gun taken from me than a $2,000 gun. Also, it's the Sig Sauer P365 X Macro TAC Ops. I would certainly research SIG. They've had some recalls. That is an individual decision. I will tell you my own opinion. SIG is a great company. Their 200 series stuff is phenomenal, but their 300 series stuff has been plagued with drop safeties not working and firearms being discharged at inappropriate times. So do your own research. The company is fantastic. Next is the Walther PDP Compact Steel Frame 4-inch. I will tell you that either the steel frame's more expensive, but any of the Walther PDPs are great. They are reliable firearms. I've had plenty of customers actually purchase them after seeing them in class. The only thing I'd caution against that is it's a thicker gun. It definitely is a double stack 9mm. So just make sure it's concealable. Next is an OA Defense OA 2311 Compact Pro. I have never heard of this, ever. So when I went to their website, it is a futuristic looking, basically it's a 1911, looks like a polymer 1911. Let me tell you about it. It's 15 rounds and it costs $2,249.99. Same opinion as the Staccato. I don't want a $2,000 gun being confiscated from me. They have multiple different versions of it. There's a plus kit, there's a law enforcement kit, a 17 round, which we can't get in Illinois. And OA Defense engineers and manufactures innovative, forward-thinking firearm platforms designed to enhance the performance capabilities of high-level shooting sports athletes, law enforcement officers, and military special operations personnel. I have never seen one. I have never held one, so I don't have that much personal experience. Then there's the ubiquitous Glock 19. That is the most sold firearm. Solid. It's thick. You could get a 43X, which is thinner, and 43X, you can do an aftermarket conversion that makes it into a 15-round gun with no changes to the external dimensions. Then we've got a Colt Python 3-inch. Hey, again, it's an expensive gun. It's a nice gun. They're fantastic. You've got another Sig Sauer P365. Now, again, it's a fine machine. There has been some recalls. It does not fit my hand because when I put a magazine in it, the grip is actually shorter than my palm, and I end up getting pinched. So not so cool. Then there's the PSA, Palmetto State Armory Micro Dagger C1. That is a Glock clone. One of my friends has one, and he loves it. I have not. I've seen them. I have not shot one. Then you've got the Ruger LCP Max. That is a fantastic firearm. Taurus GX4 Toro. One of my customers had one. I actually got to take it apart. It looks like a solid gun. I mean, I know people poo-poo Taurus, but it looks like a solid gun. Also on the list, and I just mentioned it, is Glock 43X, as well as the Smith & Wesson Shield Plus. In that size category, the Smith & Wesson Shield Plus is the softest shooting, meaning least recoil gun. I have no idea how they engineered it to be that, but it is an absolute pleasure to shoot. As a matter of fact, I had a customer, he took a concealed carry class from me about 2 summers ago, and he hasn't bought a gun yet. Well, now he's ready to buy a gun, and he asked me, and this is one of the ones he had. I said, hands down, you will be very, very happy with it. Then you've got the Springfield Armory Hellcat Pro. That's the larger of the Hellcats. Again, fine weapon. Just be careful about concealed carry. Then you've got the Smith & Wesson 351P, which is a snub-nose revolver made by Smith & Wesson. It is 22 Magnum and has a capacity of 7 rounds. It also has an exposed hammer, which means you can cock it to shoot it. And the upside of a 22 Magnum is that it actually has enough punch to stop an attack, and it is easily controllable. The downside is it is rimfire ammunition and may not be that reliable. So that was on the list. Also on the list is the Ruger LCR in 22. Again, this is a revolver. The advantages are it is an 8-shot revolver, so you have more than the standard 5 or 6 in a small revolver package. But again, the downside, the 22 is not that effective in stopping a threat, which is why you need the 8 rounds. Finally on the list, rounding it out, is the Beretta PX4 Storm Compact Carry 2. This is a polymer gun. It is very thick. I used to train people with it when I worked at a shooting range. It's a solid, solid gun. Here's the drawback to it, and I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just trying to educate people. The drawback, and this is a personal opinion, I do not like a slide-mounted safety. And the reason why is it's very difficult to effectively rack the gun without cutting yourself. Meaning when you release the slide, you really got to move your hand away, or as the slide slides forward, your hand could get caught on that, and then you could tear your skin. So this is just an article I found online on MSN, believe it or not. And these are some really interesting choices. Here's a rhetorical question for everyone. How many of my listeners love dogs? Typically, people who are in the safety industries love dogs. And I have a wonderful dog. And as you know, or if you've listened to the show before, in September I had shoulder surgery. So I had a rotator cuff tear. It was full tear, reattached. I had a bicep tear that was almost a full tear. And then I had a bone spur that was shredding my bicep sheath. So good times. Well, I'm 4 months out from surgery, and I went outside to get the mail on a day that it had snowed, and I took a spill. Now, I cracked my butt when on the way down. No, I'm kidding. Cracked the ground, but I luckily, this sounds weird, but I luckily landed on my left knee and my left arm because it's my right arm that I had surgery on. Still got jarred pretty good, and my knee is all torn up on the outside. It's superficial. There's a little bit of swelling, but I don't think I tore anything. It's just, it feels like an owie, a boo-boo. And it's been a week and it's still bleeding a little bit. So that's how bad it is. I didn't go to the hospital or anything. I just kind of beat myself up. So why do I say dogs? Why did I say I slipped on the ice? Well, we got to walk our dogs sometimes. Now, if you don't have a fenced yard, you can't just let your dog go in the fenced yard because you don't want the dog to run away. So you may be walking the dog. And I want to go over briefly some safety tips for walking on ice. First of all, wear proper footwear with non-slip soles. Yeah, I had that on. I had rubber soles. If you are wearing leather soles, and when I was in college, I got a pair of cowboy boots. Boy, I was so cool. But they had leather soles. And I went on ice, holy cow, zero grip. So I would even avoid leather shoes in general. I had a friend, he went to the FBI Academy, and they were doing a tour of the Washington Monument. It was raining. He had patent leather uniform shoes with leather soles at the top of the marble stairwell. And he went down and took everyone else down like bowling pins. So falling is no joke. Take slow, small steps and keep your center of gravity over your feet. If there's handrails, use them. Equip yourself with ice cleats, warm gloves, and reflective clothing, and walk slowly and carefully. So what is an ice cleat? Well, it is a kind of skeletonized rubber thing you put over your shoe, and the bottom has little metal things, not necessarily spikes, but sometimes, depending on the product, they could be spikes, and they really give you some purchase. I've used them in the past. I should have used them last week, dummy Marcus, but I didn't. So I hope you enjoyed this show. We'll be back next week with more stuff to share with you. In the meantime, please stay safe, have fun, and if you have any questions or would like any topics discussed on the show, my electronic business card, which has my phone number in it, is marcusmelnick.com. That is MarcusMelnick.com. See you next week.
We have monthly concealed carry license CCL classes in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. Dates can be seen at firearmmentor.com/classes. If you have a question, we can be reached at www.firearmmentorcard.com. That is our electronic business card, has all of our contact information and links in it. It's the easiest way to get a hold of us. Until next time, stay safe out there, and I'll see you at the shooting range. This is Marcus Melnick from Firearm Mentor signing off. The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters.